The most frightening part of the Kyle Busch death rumor was not that people had answers. It was that nobody seemed sure where the question had even started. One second, Kyle Busch was the same name NASCAR fans have known for years, a champion tied to speed, controversy, trophies, booze, cheers, and unforgettable Sundays. Then suddenly his name appeared beside one word that can freeze an entire fan base: death. That single word changed the mood instantly. People stopped scrolling like normal. They leaned closer to their screens. They searched again, refreshed again, and waited for something clear to appear. But the clearest thing has to come first. There is no confirmed evidence from reliable sources that Kyle Busch has died. That is where the truth begins. Not with panic, not with a search trend, not with a vague post that makes people feel sick before they even know what they are reading. The truth is simple, and the internet made it feel complicated. Kyle Busch became part of a viral fear cycle where a name, a rumor, and a search suggestion can create the feeling of breaking news without confirmed facts behind it. And that is why this story grabbed people so fast. Because Kyle Busch is not a background figure in NASCAR. He is not a driver fans casually forget. He is one of the most intense, debated, and recognizable competitors of his generation. People have argued about him in living rooms. They have defended him in comment sections. They have booed him at tracks and cheered him when he did something only Kyle Busch could do. That kind of presence does not disappear quietly from the internet. So when fans saw the phrase connected to his name, it did not feel small. It felt like a siren. Some people searched because they were worried. Some searched because they saw others asking. Some searched because the phrase appeared online and looked too serious to ignore. And that is how a rumor becomes louder than its own source. One person asks if Kyle Busch is okay. Another person repeats the question. A third person searches the phrase. Then the search itself starts spreading. And suddenly thousands of people are reacting to the possibility instead of the facts. That is the trap. A rumor does not need proof to travel. It only needs fear. Fear fills silence faster than truth can organize itself. If there is no clear headline, people keep hunting. If there is no trusted update in front of them, they scan random posts. If enough people type the same alarming words, the words begin to look important. But attention is not evidence. A trending phrase is not confirmation. And curiosity can become panic when the subject is someone people feel they know. Kyle Busch matters to fans because his career has never been quiet. He raced like every lap had a personal meaning. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew he could win and the edge of someone who did not mind making people angry while doing it. That made him impossible to ignore. To his supporters, he was fearless. To his critics, he was frustrating. To everyone watching, he was a force. He became the kind of driver who could change the temperature of a race just by being near the front. When Kyle Busch showed up, something could happen. A pass, a battle, a radio moment, a celebration, a reaction from the crowd that told you this was not just another driver circling the track. That emotional history is why the rumor hit so hard. Fans were not reacting to a random name. They were reacting to years of memories. They remembered the wins. They remembered the rivalries. They remembered the moments when Kyle Busch looked unbeatable and the moments when the sport seemed to turn against him. They remembered loving him. They remembered hating him. Sometimes they remembered doing both in the same race. That is what makes sports figures feel close to people who have never met them. A driver becomes part of weekends, family traditions, arguments, predictions, heartbreaks, and celebrations. So when a phrase like Kyle Busch death starts circulating, it touches something deeper than ordinary gossip. It makes people imagine the worst before they have permission to breathe. And that is where the internet can become cruel without even trying. A rumor can turn a living person into a headline-shaped panic. And once that panic starts, it does not move like a normal conversation. It moves like smoke. It slips into search bars. It shows up under videos. It appears in comment sections where nobody knows who said it first, but everybody suddenly feels the need to ask about it. That is how a frightening phrase becomes bigger than the truth sitting right beside it. Because the truth asks people to slow down. The rumor begs them to react. And online, reaction usually wins the first few minutes. For NASCAR fans, that first wave was the scariest part. Not because there was verified information, but because there was confusion. People saw the words and felt their stomach drop. They wondered if they had missed something. They wondered if there had been a crash, an announcement, or some terrible update they had not seen yet. They started looking for a trusted source. But the more they searched, the more the search itself seemed to grow. That is the nightmare loop. You search because you are afraid. Your search helps make the phrase look more popular. Then someone else sees it trending and becomes afraid too. Suddenly, the internet is not reporting a tragedy. It is manufacturing a storm around the fear of one. And Kyle Busch is exactly the kind of name that can make that storm explode. Because his career has always lived in high emotion. He has never been the safe, neutral figure everyone politely claps for. He has been the driver people watch with clenched jaws and raised voices. He has been the villain in one fan's story and the hero in another's. He has carried the weight of expectation, criticism, admiration, and resentment for years. That kind of career creates a bond that is messy, loud, and deeply human. Even the people who say they cannot stand Kyle Busch still know when he is in the race. They know his number. They know his style. They know the feeling of seeing him in position to ruin someone else's perfect Sunday. And in sports, that kind of presence is rare. Love him or hate him, Kyle Busch made people feel something. That is why the rumor did not pass quietly. It hit a fan base that already had years of emotional fuel stored up. Every big win, every heated moment, every comeback. Every time he walked into a track and seemed to carry the confidence of a man who knew half the crowd wanted him beaten. All of it came rushing back the second people saw that one terrifying word. Death rumors are especially dangerous because they do not feel like normal gossip. They feel urgent. They feel final. They make people skip the careful part of their brain and go straight to dread. That is why creators, pages, and random accounts have a responsibility not to play games with them. A vague post can scare thousands of people. A misleading title can send families, friends, and fans into panic. A recycled image or out-of-context clip can make something old look like something happening right now. And in the middle of that confusion, the person at the center of the rumor becomes almost invisible. People stop thinking about the human being. They start chasing the headline. But Kyle Busch is not just a search term. He is a husband, a father, a competitor, and a man whose life exists far beyond the noise of trending phrases. He is also a symbol of a sport built on danger, speed, and the constant knowledge that things can change in a heartbeat. That is another reason fans reacted so strongly. NASCAR has history. NASCAR fans understand risk. They know that when cars are flying around a track at terrifying speeds, fear is never completely imaginary. The sport has given fans unforgettable glory, but it has also given them moments they never wanted to relive. So when a rumor connects a driver's name with death, even without proof, it lands inside a community that already knows how fragile everything can feel. That does not make the rumor true. It explains why it felt so frightening. People were not just reacting to Kyle Busch. They were reacting to the shadow that exists behind every dangerous sport. The crash you hope never happens. The update you hope never comes. The silence that feels too long. And that emotional memory makes misinformation move even faster. Because fans are not robots. They do not wait calmly when they think someone they have watched for years might be gone. He has carried that strange burden that only the biggest sports figures carry. The burden of being known by people who have never spoken to you. The burden of becoming a symbol. For some NASCAR fans, Kyle Busch represents raw talent, aggression, and the refusal to soften himself for public comfort. For others, he represents every rivalry, every heated moment, every race where emotions boiled over and the grandstands seemed divided right down the middle. But that division is exactly why the death rumor felt so powerful. Because even people who never rooted for him still understood his place in the sport. Even critics paused. Even fans who spent years arguing against him wanted the truth to be simple, clear, and safe. That is the strange thing about sports hate. A crowd can boo a man for years, then panic the moment they think something terrible may have happened to him. Because beneath the noise, beneath the rival colors, beneath the angry posts and weekend arguments, there is still a human being, a husband, a father, a competitor, a person whose name carries weight far beyond a results sheet. And when the internet attaches the word death to that name, it does not feel like a statistic. It feels personal. That is why so many fans did not just scroll past it. They stopped. They searched. They asked. They hoped someone say it was not true. And as far as confirmed reliable information goes, that is exactly the boundary that matters. There is no confirmed evidence that Kyle Busch has died. The panic was built around online searching, unclear chatter, and the kind of viral confusion that can make a question look like an answer. That distinction is everything. Because in moments like this, the internet often blurs the line between what people are asking and what people know. A question becomes a headline. A headline becomes a fear. A fear becomes a wave. And by the time the wave reaches casual fans, many of them do not even realize they are reacting to uncertainty. They just see the name. They see the word. And their minds fill in the darkest possibility. That is how modern rumor culture works. It does not always begin with one massive lie. Sometimes it begins with a strange search phrase. Sometimes it begins with an old post, a misleading thumbnail, a recycled clip, or a vague comment with no source behind it. Sometimes it begins because people type the worst possible version of a question into a search bar, hoping the answer will prove them wrong. Then the platform sees activity. The phrase gains momentum. More people notice it, and suddenly everyone thinks there must be a reason. But the reason may be nothing more than panic feeding panic. That is the scary part. The internet can make fear look official before truth has even entered the room. For Kyle Busch, that fear hit a fan base that already knows how quickly danger can become real in motorsports. NASCAR is not a game played in slow motion. It is speed, metal, fire, reaction time, and consequences. Every fan who has watched long enough understands that racing carries a shadow. They have seen crashes that made grandstands go silent. They have seen cars torn apart and drivers climb out like miracles. They know the sound of a broadcast changing tone. They know what it feels like when a race stops being entertainment for a few terrifying minutes. So when a rumor like this appears, it lands on old nerves. It does not arrive in an empty room. It arrives in a sport where danger has always been part of the emotional contract. That is why people believed they had to check immediately. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because in racing, fans have been trained by history to take frightening words seriously until proven otherwise. And that makes the rumor even more dangerous. It borrows the emotional weight of real tragedies. It borrows the fear that motorsports fans carry deep inside them. It borrows the love people have for drivers who risk themselves in front of millions. And it spreads without doing the work of being true. That is why fact-safe storytelling matters. Not because drama is wrong. Sports are dramatic by nature. Racing is dramatic before the green flag even drops. Kyle Busch has lived in that strange place where fame turns every quiet moment into a question mark. For years, his name has meant speed, noise, arguments, trophies, boos, comebacks, and pressure so heavy it almost feels visible. So when people suddenly began searching the words Kyle Busch death, it did not land like a normal internet phrase. It hit NASCAR fans like a siren in the distance. Nobody wanted to believe it. Nobody wanted to ignore it either. That is the trap these viral rumors create. They do not always begin with proof. Sometimes they begin with fear. A fan sees a strange search suggestion. Another person notices a dramatic thumbnail. Someone else reads a comment that sounds confident, even though it gives no source. Within minutes, concern starts moving faster than the truth can catch up. That is how one frightening phrase can make thousands of people stop scrolling and start asking the same thing. Is Kyle Busch okay? That question carries weight because Kyle Busch is not some random name passing through the sports world. He is one of the most recognizable figures NASCAR has produced in the modern era. He is a champion, a lightning rod, a veteran, and a driver whose career has been lived in front of fans who either loved his fire or could not wait to see him beaten. That kind of presence does not fade into the background. It stays loud even when the rumor around it is wrong. And this is where the line has to be clear. As of this story, there is no confirmed evidence from reliable sources that Kyle Busch has died. The phrase appears to have spread through online searching, confusion, and the kind of panic that grows when alarming words get attached to a famous person. That may not be the dramatic answer the internet was trying to sell, but it is the responsible answer fans deserve to hear, because there is a real person behind the name. Kyle Busch is not just a headline to be twisted into fear. He is a husband, a father, a racer, and a public figure whose life has been followed through victories, crashes, rivalries, interviews, and seasons where every mistake was magnified. When a rumor like this spreads, it does not only create curiosity, it creates anxiety. It makes fans check their phones twice. It makes people dig through social media looking for confirmation. It makes a normal day feel suddenly unstable. And in NASCAR, that fear has a deeper root. This is a sport built on speed, danger, and the thin line between control and chaos. Fans know what a violent impact looks like. They know how quickly celebration can turn into silence. They know racing history has carried real heartbreak, not imagined drama. So when the internet places Kyle Busch's name next to the darkest word possible, people react from memory as much as confusion. They are not just reading a rumor. They are feeling the shadow of what motorsports can cost. That is why this spread so quickly. The rumor did not need details. It only needed a famous name, a frightening phrase, and an audience already trained to worry. From there, imagination filled in the blanks. People searched for official updates that were not there. They found old clips being recycled like new evidence. They saw comments written by strangers and wondered if those strangers knew something they did not. The more they searched, the more the phrase kept appearing. And the more it appeared, the more real it seemed. That is the dangerous loop. The internet can turn panic into visibility, then mistake visibility for truth. A search trend is not an obituary. A viral phrase is not confirmation. A comment section is not a reliable source. But when emotion is high, those lines can blur fast. Kyle Busch became the center of that blur because his name already carries gravity. He has spent his career making people feel something. He has won with edge. He has lost with frustration. He is celebrated like a man who knew the world was watching. He has taken criticism, answered pressure, and returned to the track again and again with that same fierce expression that made him impossible to ignore. Some fans cheered him like a hero. Some fans booed him like a villain. But almost everyone understood his importance. That is rare. In racing, the strongest personalities become part of the weekly ritual. He has carried that rare kind of sports electricity, where even people who claim they do not care still look up when his name is mentioned. That is why the rumor did not land softly. It landed on top of an entire career built on noise. Kyle Busch has spent years giving fans something to feel. Sometimes it was admiration. Sometimes it was anger. Sometimes it was disbelief. But it was almost never nothing. And in the age of viral searches, that kind of fame becomes dangerous in a different way. Because the bigger the name, the faster the fear travels. The internet does not pause and say, wait, is this confirmed? It sees a famous name attached to a terrifying word, and it starts running. That is why the story is not just about Kyle Busch. It is about what happens when the sports world starts treating search trends like sirens. A search trend can look official. It can feel urgent. It can make people believe something must have happened, because why else would so many people be asking the same thing at the same time? But sometimes the answer is not a breaking event. Sometimes the answer is the panic itself. One post can be vague. One comment can be misunderstood. One old clip can get recirculated with no context. One fake-looking thumbnail can make someone nervous. One algorithm can push a phrase because people keep clicking, not because the phrase is true. Then suddenly the question becomes the story. Is Kyle Busch dead? What happened to Kyle Busch? Is this real? Why is everyone searching his name? And every new search adds another spark. That is the cruel trick. The internet can make a question look like an answer. It can make uncertainty feel like evidence. It can make fans feel late to news that does not actually exist. And when a person has lived in the public eye as intensely as Kyle Busch has, people do not respond calmly. They respond like something personal has been touched. Because sports fandom is personal. It is not just stats on a page. It is being a kid on a couch while engines scream through the television. It is wearing a driver's shirt to school and arguing with someone who hates him. It is watching a race with your father, your brother, your friends, or alone in a quiet room after a long week. It is seeing a driver win and feeling like your side won too. It is seeing him lose and carrying that frustration into Monday. That is why death rumors feel so invasive. They do not just attack a name. They attack memory. They make people imagine empty seats, silent radios, and highlight reels playing for the wrong reason. They turn celebration into dread before anyone has confirmed anything at all. And that is exactly why the boundary matters. As of this telling, there is no confirmed evidence from reliable sources that Kyle Busch has died. The viral searches and online fear do not change that. The rumor is not the same thing as a fact. The panic is not proof. The volume of people asking does not create truth. That may sound simple, but online simple truth often has to fight its way through a crowd. Because rumors know how to dress themselves up. They borrow the language of emergency. They use dramatic words. They hide behind phrases like people are saying or reports claim or did you hear? They make the reader feel irresponsible for not clicking. They make fear feel like caution. And when the subject is a driver connected to danger for a living, the rumor gets even more believable in people's minds. Racing already carries risk in its shadow. Every NASCAR fan knows that. The speed is part of the thrill, but it is also part of the fear. The sound, the walls, the wrecks, the sudden silence after a hard impact. This sport has taught fans that everything can change in an instant. So when an alarming phrase appears beside a driver's name, the mind goes there fast. It imagines a crash. It imagines a medical emergency. It imagines an announcement. It fills in blanks with the worst possible picture. That does not mean the picture is real. It means the fear knows where to go. And with Kyle Busch, the fear had a long road to run on. He is a two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. He the most successful drivers of his era. He built a career across NASCAR's top levels that made his name feel permanent in the sports conversation.